All right, you guys, thanks for your patience through all of that craziness. I am very excited about tonight. We have a special guest, and this person is, I think, one of the coolest people that I have met. As you know, we have Derek Andersen, who is here tonight from Silicon Valley, joining us to tell us the story of how Startup Grind was built and what it has been like to grow and run a global organization. Being an entrepreneur is no small task. I think we can all agree to that. And it's something that requires a lot of passion and a lot of dedication and a lot of hard work. And I have a utmost respect for anyone that takes on those mountains. I also understand that we have a strange kind of sickness that prevents us from not taking on these mountains, right? We just kind of have to do it sometimes. But anytime there's an organization that comes along that really has that extra heart to it, that makes a difference in the lives of people, like Startup Grind does, I have a little extra respect for the people that make that happen. And Derek Andersen is one of those people that saw a vision of a way that he could help entrepreneurs have a better, brighter path and find their way to success more happily and more quickly. And so we have him to thank for Startup Grind. So I'm going to have you guys get up on your feet and join me in giving him a warm Startup Grind welcome. Derek Andersen. All right.
What's up?
Okay, my man. So we're going to start right at the beginning. Tell us about Derek Andersen, your
I was
early
born
life,
to
where you're
goodly
from.
parents. I grew up in Tampa, Florida, and moved around a lot. Lived in Europe for 6 years as a kid, and
What part?
I lived in France, and Switzerland, and Germany. And at one point, I was in 10 schools in 10 years.
Wow.
And what I knew every year was that I would be saying goodbye to whoever I'd become friends with. So I learned you either make friends fast or you cry yourself to sleep every night. And I learned, for better or worse, to not get too attached to people. So knowing that was it. You got to keep moving. You got to move fast. And every year was like, I know there's some lean startup books over here. Every year was like a new startup, because like you take all the stuff that you screwed up on, like, the dumb things you said to girls, or, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to do that this time. And so each year in theory, you get better each year. But so, then I ended up in the Bay Area in 2005 for an internship with Electronic Arts. That was my first job.
And was that before college or after?
No, I was after college. I attended Brigham Young University and graduated in communications because the girl that I wanted to marry was taking that major. And
this is how life really works.
It was a good way to get in group project with her and spend time with her, was to take the same classes as her. So unbeknownst to her.
Is she the one that you did marry?
Some people call that stalking, but in Provo it's called dating. And so, as you may have read, and then I moved out to the Bay Area in 2005, and I worked for EA. I worked in games like The Godfather and Burnout. It's a racing game, if there are any gamers in here. All right. Which Burnout? I'm going to call you out. Which Burnout? Which one? Which game? Which one do you like? All right. I'm going to take that as Paradise. That's the one I worked on. And then I worked on Mirror's Edge and all the EA games, and learned how to work in a big company. And what I learned at EA, I'm going off script.
No.
But what I learned at EA was that the first couple of years, like, I was working like 110% for this big company. And one day I realized that if I worked 110%, I was in the top 2% of employees at EA. Okay, so that was pretty cool. But then I realized if I worked 70%, I was like in the top 10% of employees. So I was like, like, why don't I take the 40% and put it towards something else, and I'll still like be one of the best employees, but I'm doing my own thing. So I instead of being the first person and the last person out, I would be like, I would go to Starbucks in the morning and work on my ideas, and that for like an hour or hour and a half, and then I would go to work and I was like the third person in. And then, like, I would just leave earlier, and then I would just work on my stuff at night. And then that eventually led to me leaving EA and doing startup stuff in 2009.
And what were your first startups?
Oh, gosh. Nothing you've ever heard of. My first startup actually was with one of my best friends who lives out here, and it was this revolutionary idea, just so cutting edge. I worked in marketing. He worked for a truck advertising company. So when you put those two things together, what do you get? You get truck marketing. Yes, that was our first startup. And we're going to put ads on trucks because what does the world need more than truck ads, right? Am I right? People in the greater Phoenix area know that better than anybody else. So anyways, this was a horrible idea because we went out and we tried to sell it and we couldn't. We're not the worst salesmen in the world, but we're maybe not the best, but we're not the worst. And like, we couldn't beg people to buy this thing. Like, no one wants truck ads. Nobody. I'm telling you. Like, don't, like, you're like, wow. I'm sure some guy's like, wow, that's a great idea. I should, like, look into that. Like, please don't. I have a deck if you want it. I'll give you all the, like, you can have it. I don't want to be an advisor. I don't want anything. You just take it, like, just out of my conscience. And anyway, so after 6 months, I couldn't sell it to anyone. And then I had this friend of mine who I went to school with. And he started a startup, and he's like, hey, like, I don't know what you're doing with that truck stuff, but, like, I know you did some digital marketing stuff at EA. Maybe you could do some marketing for us. And I was like, I'm focused. I'm committed to this idea. Nothing's going to stop me, from executing on this. And he's like, well, why don't you just do it part-time? Like, well, how much can you pay? He's like, how about $80 an hour? And I was like, I still remember exactly where I was on that phone call. You know when you have those moments where it's like, you know exactly where you were. It's like, I looked at the phone and I was just like, I probably never made over $30 an hour. And I put it back to my ear and I said, there's no way I could do it for less than 85. So we agreed to 85. And for those 20 hours a week, I paid for everything that I had, all the expenses I had. And I started working on I quit the truck thing. And then I just started working on fun stuff on the side, and that's kind of what I did for the next few years.
And then comes Startup Grind.
So a few months later, a friend and I who had left Apple, we just started talking. We're like, hey, why don't we get our friends together? We can brainstorm. We can, like maybe we'll start companies together. The people that come, maybe some good ideas we'll have. Maybe we can just help each other. It was like, it's nothing. It was just like some friends. And I use this hashtag called hashtag Startup Grind on Twitter because like that's like what I would do when I'm like working at 3 a.m. I'm like, awesome, did my computer just crash? Startup Grind, and it was like that's what it like I had I had done this to myself, right? Like I had no one to blame for the Startup Grind but myself, and it was just a reminder that like this is what I was putting myself through. And so the first event had 9 people. It went as well as it could go. It was at my office. In Mountain View, and we just did it every month. And about 6 months later, we tried all sorts of things. Every month we would try something new. Every month it was a new startup. Like we tried every like social networking app. We tried every platform. We started on Google Wave. For those that remember Google Wave, we thought it had all these revolutionary features until they like killed the whole product. And then 6 months later, we went to see the Social Network movie, midnight showing, and 4 people showed up. And I got in my car, and I said, what a freaking waste of time. And I talked to a few people about it, and I said, you know what, I'm going to try this. Like, I'm not going to do this half-aced. I'm going to try to make this work and have it be cool, or I'm just never going to do it again. And so 6 weeks later, we had our first, like, speaker come speak. And he had sold his company to Oracle, and 40 people showed up, and it was shocking. And then the next month we had a bigger speaker, that just all my friends, and then it was 60 people, and then the next month it was 80, and then 100, and then this guy Jason Calacanis, who maybe some of you listen to his podcast or have been to Launch Festival. He was kind of thrown out of this thing with Michael Arrington with TechCrunch, and so a lot of people were kind of like didn't like him at the time. So I figured that's the type of person we want at Startup Grind. And so he said he would come speak, but he said, look, I don't have time to prepare a talk. You're just going to have to interview me. I said, that's fine. Just show up. It's fine. And so he showed up, and I interviewed him, and it worked. And so when you find something that works, you're not banging your head against the wall all the time. It's like, oh, I made some progress. It's like, I'll do that. So we just killed all the other ideas, and we just did that. And we've done that ever since. And that was February 2011.
Wow.
So, 4.5 years later, we've done more than 2,000 events just like this in 70 countries. We'll do 100 events this month, just like this, in everywhere from Iran. We've got Dave McClure speaking tonight in Gaza, and then he's speaking tomorrow in Ramallah, Palestine. Anybody been to Palestine? I was there last September. You walk into, not one of your questions, I'm sure. You walk into an event. You go through Jerusalem, through the checkpoint, through the West Bank, which is a mess, right? And then there's Google ads there, which was, I think, the strangest thing ever to see Google ads in the West Bank. But then you go into Ramallah, and you walk upstairs, and you walk into an event. It's just like this. You've got these CTOs, you've got developers, you got engineers, you got people building their companies in like the middle of not a great place, and it's amazing. It was so inspiring to me, and but that's what I found living all over the world. Lived 8 years outside the U.S. Everyone is the same. Everyone just wants to help their families. Like, we all have families. We all just want to see better for our families, and that's fundamentally, like, Startup Grind is, we have 5 chapters in Iran, which you think, like, what's that like, right? But I mean, these are some of the most amazing people you ever meet that run these things, the best people you'll ever meet, and they just want to help their families. So, Startup Grind, hopefully, we try to help people, get out of tough situations and help their families.
That's cool. So when it came time to actually make it an official organization, a couple of things that you did I think were really important, and I'd like to hear more about them. The first one being the values that you set up, and the second one being the partnership that you got with Google.
So values are really interesting, especially for a startup. And who here has values that are on their website today? That's a startup. Okay. You're not going to learn anything tonight, so just setting the expectation. But if you remember one thing, it's to go home and figure out what the heck your values are. And it sounds so stupid at this stage. I mean, it just does. It's like, well, dude, like, really? Like, I'm trying to, like, get funded. I'm trying to make payroll. I'm trying to find somebody to work with me. And you want me to figure out my values? Like, that's what you do, when you have a big company and you need to do a corporate offsite and people don't want to work for a week. So you go offsite and, like, spend a bunch of money and probably drink a lot, and then you come home with values. It's like, that's not actually true. But that's, if you work for a big company, you might feel that way sometimes. But the values become a magnet for people that are like you that will get behind your mission. So if you don't have a great mission, then you need to figure out something better to work on. And the values, in theory, reflect the founders. So what happened with Startup Grind, our values are super simple. It's about helping someone before you help yourself, giving before you take, and making friends. It's not about how many LinkedIn connections you get tonight or how many business cards you throw away when you get home. It's about who on your left and on your right, what's their deal? How can you help them? How can you push them to the next level? And if you have that mentality 24/7, you will be successful. I am sure of it. And you don't give up. If you give up, you definitely won't be successful. But and if you run out of money, it's going to be bad. And if your wife is, like, really angry at you for doing your startup, that's not going to work out.
Any others?
No, that's it. That's it. Those are the only things. So I was meeting with one of our speakers, and he had attended our event, and I was sitting down with him. He's like, "You have to talk about what's special about Startup Grind." I'm like, "What is special about Startup Grind? There's nothing special about Startup Grind." And he's like, "This is like 2 years in," and he's like, "It's your values." He's like, "Startup Grind's about making friends, and Startup Grind's about helping." And I'm like, "He's right." And I was like, "So yeah." And he like, "What's the big deal? Isn't everybody like that?" And he's like, "No, that's totally unique to Startup Grind." And so I went back to the garage where we worked at the time, and in 10 minutes, the 3 things that you see on the wall in here, I put those pen to paper in 10 minutes. And my CTO co-founder that works with me, he put the designs together. And that 10 minutes of work is by far the most important thing we've ever done with Startup Grind. Isn't that interesting? It's not the code that we've been working on for the last 9 months, which always breaks. It's not, it's not the Google deal. It helps, but it's almost meeting Christie is like one of the top. It's almost there to the values, but it became this magnet of the right people, and so, we get about 100 applications a month, and so and a lot of people like Christie end up applying and joining our organization. And people come to me and say, like, wow, people said it tonight. It's like, and people like Christie build great teams, like Tanny and all these other people. Like, people said to me, like, how did you find Christie? She's perfect. And I said, Christie found us. Like, I didn't do jack. Like, I'm like, yeah, well, like, really exhaustive process of searching, and just there's proprietary software and process there. I can't really talk about it. It's not. It's like Christie found us. And we met her and we're like, she's our people. And so
it was actually the values on the website that connected me with you guys. It was the thing that enticed me and made me feel like this was a place where I would want to be. So it all comes full circle.
Well, and that's for your own startups. Like, this is like, go home with your co-founder, write an email tonight if they're not here, figure this out. And if you do, it's not generic things. Figure out what's unique to you. There are other people that have our same values, by the way. We don't have the corner on helping people. Okay. Sorry. But we talk about them, and it's in my bio, for instance. Everywhere I talk about Startup Grind, the values are one of the first things we talk about.
And then how and why the partnership with Google?
So Google, I met Google about 3 years ago, and they have this program called Google for Entrepreneurs. And Google was a startup, right? We all know that. And they kind of had this mission a few years ago to put this team together to try to help startups and to like just support ecosystems and to support communities, especially outside the United States. And so I met this team, and maybe partnering with Google is probably a lot of obvious good reasons to partner with Google, but maybe what's more interesting is how it came together. I didn't approach Google until I had hosted 250 events. So we've been hosting events for like 3 years. And that was on purpose, because when I went in, I wanted them to know, like, I wanted it to be wow, And so I went in, I got a great introduction to a senior person at Google who introduced me to the group. And I went in and I thought the meeting went terrible. I thought there's no way. I walked out and I said to the guys, I was like, they're never going to work with us. And but what we decided is they said, hey, let's revisit this in 3 months, because we had this thing coming up in 3 months. And I thought, well, that's just too long. So we got in the car and we decided, let's just host an event in like a month. Let's just invent it and see if we can do something with them in a month. It was right before Christmas, so we're like trying to get something in before the holidays. And so we're like, hey, we're going to have this event. Could we host it at Google? And they were like, yeah, okay, cool. And so we didn't have a speaker. We invented a speaker. We got a speaker. And then we hosted this event, and it went really well. It was great. And then that was kind of like 6 weeks. And then 6 weeks later, we had this other event that we did, and we invited them to participate in that for free. We just said, hey, just join the event, and you can speak and do all this stuff. And then 3 months after that, they wanted to partner with us, and we're one of only 2 global partners that they have.
That's really
and
cool.
The interesting thing that the guy that does the partnerships has told this story, but he said the thing that made a difference to him was when we were hosting that first event. He said he saw me cleaning up and picking up all the pizza, like pizza crusts and stuff that you guys, sandwiches and stuff you leave on the floor. So somebody has to pick that crap up. And he was like, that. I saw that, and I was like, this is the kind of person, this is the kind of people we want to work with. And so you don't know what it's going to be, right? You think it's going to be the pitch and the meeting and all this stuff, but it ends up being like these little things that you've been doing for years and years and years that no one cared about, and it ends up making a difference.
Very good. So in business, I feel like one of the greatest things is the people that you're with, and sometimes one of the most challenging things is the people that you're with, or finding the right people to be with. So with Startup Grind being largely a volunteer organization, I mean,
It's like bachelor pad.
I know, right?
Same
I mean,
scenario.
I have an amazing staff, but I can't even get them to do all the things as much as they want to and are trying to sometimes. How in the world has it been to not just run a global organization with hundreds of people that are a part of it, that are, that you have authority over, but it's a little hard to enforce, and then within that structure, you were able to get the values happening on the ground, and really the theme of the events and everything really consistent. I mean, what's the secret sauce behind that, man?
Well, lady. The first 125 chapters that we had, I personally approved the person for all of those cities. Well, you were one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And so I figured that, at some point it became very tedious, and maybe I could have stopped at 50 or 60 or so, and it's like at that point, But what I realized is, like, if we got the wrong person, it was my fault. Then I had no one to blame but myself. And I wasn't going to delegate something that was so important. And you get one bad person, and that could have a cascading effect. And so I would spend an hour with each person, at least an hour, sometimes much longer. And then that was the first call. And so, it all came from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Like, I was, in some ways, like, those calls were exactly the same. Saying the exact, I didn't have a script, but I just became the same thing I was saying every single time, because then I knew the message was clear. And so, after 125, the guy that sat next to me through that whole time, I made him do the approvals after that. So he'd heard the thing 125 times. And it's this guy named Francisco Cruz, who has been with me for more than 3 years, worked with me in the garage, me and him alone in the garage for many hot summers and cold winters. I shouldn't say hot, sorry. That's disrespectful to you, and I apologize for that. Shows you the weaknesses that I have. I just realized that you can get air conditioning units that don't have hoses that have to go outside. I just discovered this the other day.
That too.
And anyways, just pro tip there, Costco air conditioning units. You can keep the doors closed and still have AC coming in the garage. But it's just one person at a time, right?
Okay.
And we do 100 events a month, but when we did 3, it was like the most amazing thing ever. And then we did 6, and then we did 5, and then we did 10, and then we did 8, and you just slowly build and build it. And then we couldn't scale it, so we built tools to make it scalable, and you just
One
line
step at
on
a time.
line, yeah.
All right. All right. So when it comes to Startup Grind around the world, one of the things that blew me away, I think I was right around 75 chapters, and now we're up to 175 or 180 or something. But even when I launched, I know that I was just pretty blown away at the number of people that have participated in Startup Grind interviews from all kinds of amazing places. So tell us maybe a couple of favorite moments, either from interviews that you have done or from some that you've seen come through, or a couple of memorable pieces of advice that you've heard.
The first time I interviewed Dave McClure, and he's spoken at probably like 10 Startup Grinds. And that's one of the most important things for us, is a word of mouth as the speakers, right? So if they don't have a good experience, same with your users, right? If your user doesn't have a good experience, they're never going to come back, and they're never going to tell their friends. If somebody like Dave McClure or Steve Blank, who's spoken a dozen times himself in a dozen different cities, if they have a good experience, then when they go to Gaza, they'll just throw in a Startup Grind, and then they go to Ramallah, So it's kind of one experience at a time. But the first time Dave spoke, I was doing an interview with him, and after about 5 minutes, he looked at me, and he goes, the room was packed. He's like, Silicon Valley, 250 people. And he's very brash, for those that don't know him. He's very honest, brutally honest. And he looks at me and goes, "This is effing boring, dude." And I was like, well, we're talking about your life, so I don't know what you want me to do. But it was really embarrassing. I was so embarrassed, and the interview ended up being fine. So then another moment at the end of that interview is one of the most memorable. We had this founder walk in a banana suit. So just imagine, door opens, closes. We're sitting up on this little stage, and dude in a banana suit walks in. And then like his hype man next to him is holding this huge cardboard sign that says something like bananacreditloans.com or something like that. Okay? And like I look and it's kind of the lights are bright and I kind of look in and I just kind of start to smile. Like I'm going to have to say something about this. And then I look at Dave and right as I look at him I can see when he sees him cuz he starts to smile. And so he finishes his thought and I'm like, can we just talk about that guy for a minute in the back, the banana guy that just walked in? And what followed was like 2 minutes of just kind of ripping on the banana guy. And I kind of have made a life of making fun of people, so it's something I'm very, very good at. It's really, you could see why I had to move schools every year because the problems, a lot of problems. And anyway, so that was one of my favorite moments. And then my other favorite moment is when we had a guy named Mike Maples who he's one of the top venture capitalists in the Valley, angel investors, and he was talking about founders and he started crying. And I was shocked. I mean, I kind of wanted to cry with him. And I didn't have any tissues or anything either, but it was this really touching moment where it was totally genuine, like totally 100% genuine. Tiny little room. And it's, send me an email at Derek Startup Grind and I'll send you the link, or go Google Mike Maples at Startup Grind and you'll see it. But it, like these people really care, he really cares about entrepreneurs. And,
cool.
That was cool to see that.
That's very cool.
Okay. This, of course, this is like now.
Oh, of course.
Number one. Let's give it up for Christie. I mean, how great is Christie? Let me ask you, Christie.
Yes.
Christie, let me ask you something.
Yes. Calling me out for turning pink? I can't help it, man.
What's going on? What do you see? What's working in this area? What's not working? Where are the entrepreneurs being successful? Where are they not? How are they not being successful? What do they need to just fix? What's wrong?
Well,
don't even tell us the good stuff. Let's screw the good stuff.
No,
let's just go to the bad
stuff.
Sorry, dude. What do we need to do better? Let's talk about that.
Talk more about what we're doing and share like our successes and celebrate each other's successes so that we can get more visibility around all of the cool things that are happening and help other entrepreneurs realize there's a community that they can be a part of.
But what about every entrepreneur who's saying like, I'm pitching to everybody. I'm talking as much as I can. Like, what are they going to do? How are they how do they tell their story?
Well, they're probably doing a pretty good job. They could find other people to help raise and lift. And also there are other places. I mean, we have a ton of resources. AZ Commerce, we're really lucky here in Arizona that we have a great government partner, and they do a good job of having a centralized website that has some information. But there are still a lot of places that entrepreneurs don't know exist, or ways that they can get involved, or people that they can reach out to that they still have yet to discover. Clean Router over there, the guys that we were talking about earlier, they popped up about a year ago, and actually kind of cool around here in Phoenix. If you Google Startup Phoenix, some of the Startup Grind articles that we have up are in the top 10. So a lot of people, when they're looking
smart
into,
people
I know, right? Good SEO going on over there. But because of that, a lot of people that are just kind of branching out and getting into popping up and trying to see what's up and available around them do work their way over to me or to Startup Grind. And it's a pleasure to help them realize all the resources that are around them. But there are so many. I feel like we have.
Who would agree with that? That telling stories and you can do clap meter if you agree. Okay, it's kind of okay. What else? What are the other things? Just shout it out. What is this area struggling with? Let's have an open, honest dialogue right now. Venture capital. Writing checks. Okay. Said by every entrepreneur in every city in the world, including Palo Alto. Okay. What else? Engineers. Okay. Yes. All right. What else?
We need to stop being afraid to ask for help.
Okay.
Like, there's so many talented people are willing to, give feedback. We need to stop being so afraid to ask for help.
It's good.
I think the successful companies here, the big boys, need to kind of step in and also jump into startups.
So that could be a startup in itself. There's a lot of cool companies that are working with startups. That could be a startup bridging that gap between partnerships of big companies and little companies. Cool. Anybody else?
We have validation network. The validation is where everybody shares and validating each other's ideas, giving feedback and saying,
Whether or not it's going to work. Yeah. And that could be something that's also like a blind thing. Like that could be a cool community that you could start say, hey, if you like this idea, you're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. Just tell us if you like it, and have some mechanism. Maybe it's a startup a day, kind of like a mini product hunt for Arizona or something, where like you're validating each other. Like, I would pay for this, or I would use this, or I wouldn't, and getting real. That's so hard to get real feedback, right? Like nobody wants to hurt, well, not everybody, but a lot of people don't want to hurt your feelings. So, getting a like, no, this really isn't any good, or yeah, I would pay for this today. Okay, write me a check, right? So. Lack of leadership. Okay.
Yeah, executive talent. People that you can bring in, and there's a lot of people trying to do their own thing, and there's a lot of people who are talented, but they're not being asked or pulled in. But there's a lot of, at that experience level, someone who's actually gone out and done it, and failed, fallen flat on their face possibly, and is ready to go back and go at it again. Either that, or they leave. They go to LA, they go to San Francisco.
So you're a lot of the same themes, right? Like thought leadership, local resources, people that are. I mean, this is one of the largest cities in America. So there's crazy amounts of talent here, right? So you're all saying the same thing. Like, why aren't these people reaching out? Why aren't they helping? Why aren't they writing checks? Well, why isn't somebody bringing them to the table? What are you doing for that? You've got Christie running Startup Grind, other people that are running Startup Week and Startup Weekend and everything else. But like, get something where you're bringing in corporate America. Get something where you're bringing in mentors and they're not getting their brains pitched out, but where they're just asked to give advice and is this something that the market would take? You're a market expert. Get a directory of market experts, people that will give an hour a month. I'm sure almost any of those people would give an hour a month if you're going to curate stuff for them in their field. Make them an expert, make them like a thought leader in their space in the startup community. Just need to find those people. Just go to LinkedIn. It's easy. Okay, who else? You got one? Mindset. Okay. It's all in the mind. Okay. Sorry for derailing your thing.
No, it's okay. It's good stuff.
That's kind of what I do.
All right. Very good. Thank you. So now you have mentioned that you feel like you have some good information around how to get noticed in Silicon Valley from afar, that you've seen things that have worked well or that haven't worked well. So whether it's getting noticed by Silicon Valley or getting noticed by other investors or VC companies, since we literally have one true VC company here, we have funding from a lot of other areas. But what are your thoughts around that? What have you seen that works in different cities around the US?
I mean, look, the best entrepreneurs figure it out, right? Like, great startup ideas always get funded.
It's true. Hands down.
And funding in a lot of ways has been democratized from things like AngelList, so you can get any of those guys to take a look at your pitch. They might not look at it for very long, but you can get access to anybody via any angel investors via AngelList. You can be sure that any Y Combinator application gets read by a partner. There are now 2,000 founders that have gone through YC that can provide a referral. If you can't find one of those people to help give you a referral to help you get into YC, do the math. Techstars, same thing. Thousands of founders, hundreds of companies, thousands of companies maybe. They have 18 sessions every year in Techstars. Amazing incubator, amazing group. They're very accessible. Their values match better with us than any other organization probably in the world. And the founder himself, when I didn't know him or he'd never heard of me or anything else, has responded to cold emails from me. I mean, if you write a thoughtful email, I spend hours writing emails, like short emails to really important people. If you can't take the time to be thoughtful and find the right people and go get them to join your team, like, how are you ever going to manage somebody's millions of dollars properly, right? So the onus is on us as entrepreneurs to go out and figure it out and not complain and just put our heads down and find a way to win, right? And what I would say, like, okay, you do have angels. You may only have one true VC, but there are angels here. Maybe there's not a lot, but there are sources of people that you can get to back you. And so try to find some local people here. And then what I would do is I would focus on YC, Techstars, or 500 startups. And if you're early stage, you need to create momentum. And those programs create a lot of momentum. Investors attend their events. So, so that's your next line of defense, right? And then the thing that trumps everything, which Phoenix is great at, is traction. If users actually like your product, you don't need investors. They need you. So,
It's true.
like the YC companies that do great, they all have revenue. They don't like magically just like, not like there's this great talk. If you've got a social app that's you have really no clue how it's going to make money in the next year or two, go watch a talk by the founder of Plancast, which was this social app that kind of exploded. They got written up on TechCrunch like 30 times. Okay, and he gave this great talk at Startup Grind. So search Plancast founder and Startup Grind, and he talks about how much traction you really need in order to be a social app with no revenue model to actually get to break through. Pinterest is the example. Pinterest started with 250 users in the first month, which doesn't sound that good, right? But the next month they doubled, so they had 500 users. Not that great. The next month they had 1,000. They had 2,000. Then they had 4,000. Well, guess what? In 18 months, you're getting 1 million users a month. That's what you have to do if you're not going to make money. In the Valley, in Arizona, and anywhere else. It's the same everywhere. But if you have money, then you have leverage. If you have traction, if you have millions of users, if I have millions of users, Derek, I don't need a VC. Of course, well, okay, exactly. So go get traction, build it. And so that's like, and the companies that build traction, the ones that get funded without traction, it's a complete myth. If you think like these guys are like, the investors invest in these people either because A, they've been successful before, right? Previous exits, known entity, right? Or they know they're super smart engineers and their buddy at Google will buy the team if it all goes to pot, right? So I've never gotten a job at Google. Google wouldn't want to, like, I don't see any reason Google want to pay $1 million for me, which is what they pay for great engineers. I'm not a great engineer. So that's not an option for me. Are you that? Okay, great. You've got that. That's a leg up. Is your co-founder like that? Great. Is your other first hire like that? Great. Guess what? Investors know they can sell you to Google for between $1.5 million and $3 million if everything goes wrong. Good investors. So like, if you're not that though, don't be mad at those guys that they're getting funding and they don't have traction. Go get traction. And that's what we did here. Like, I tried to raise funding. I've done all that. I have raised funding on projects. I've lost people's money. It's not fun. And, and I finally decided, like, I'm just going to do it. And, we'll figure out a way. And, here we are a few years later. We have 12 employees. We have, we'll do 1,000 events this year. And we turned down a really potentially awesome funding thing this summer because it just, like, I like what we're doing and we don't need it. So let's grow to 20 or 30 on our own. We can figure out a way to do it.
That's terrific. I think, yeah, that's good. That's good. I actually think that here in Phoenix, it's actually one of our strengths, as well as having been a challenge, that we haven't had a lot of easy tech flow money, because it does force people to get scrappy and to really build something worthwhile, and they don't have the luxury as often to not do the work that it takes, which qualifies people even more. But yet, on the flip side of it, some people bootstrap their way to success, and it's terrific, and we have some really cool companies, WebPT and Appointment Plus, several of them here in town that have made that far. But we also have people like CrowdMikes that, they knew they needed funding, and so what if we only have one VC firm? They just went and found it and moved their company forward. So
amazing.
I agree. It can be done, and it's cool that we have a community that's ever finding ways to support people more and more and more. But you're right. The true entrepreneurs do find a way always. So good. All right. So switching gears a little bit, Startup Grind has a global event each February. I have to razz you just a tiny bit. It's not your fault, but it's the same week as Phoenix Startup Week, so I have to choose between my two favorite children here, it feels like. So I'll be taking a midnight flight over midweek there. But Your presentation
Just take your plane. You can go back and forth.
right, right. Your presentation at the global event this last year was actually called "I'm Not Crazy," and I thought it was really interesting that you really dedicated the opportunity that you had to helping entrepreneurs think about things differently. So tell me
If
what
you
led
say
up
it
to
enough,
that.
it becomes true, right?
Yeah. So tell me what led up to that. Like,
I've been in that meeting where you're all pumped about meeting with an investor or a potential hire or somebody else, and you walk in, and it's like, you think you're just gonna nail it, and then it's like watching somebody kiss a mirror or something. It just goes horribly wrong. It's just terrible. It's awful.
That's a different analogy.
Think about that for a second. Let's all ponder that for a minute in silence. A lot of that going on here in the greater Phoenix area. And I've felt all those feelings. I've felt like, I felt the feelings of losing someone's money. I felt the feelings of losing my own money, my family's money. I felt the feelings of launching something that nobody wanted and nobody used. And I've felt the feelings of launching something that people do like or have used. But, at the end of the day, my experience is that that people that just stay in the game long enough, everyone gets a chance at success. Everyone. Like, when I quit my job in 2009, it was like in the middle of the Great Recession, and my dad said, "You're crazy. Like, don't do this." And he's a pretty smart guy and kind of dialed into some things that I should usually listen to. And so, but it was what I needed to do. And, and I pushed through it. And, it took me three and a half years. I figured for sure I'd be on the cover of Inc. magazine within 12 or 18 months. No doubt about it. And really it took 3.5 years to even figure out what was going on. Stop treading water, And so you just have to give it time. One of the number one companies coming out of YC this batch is run by a guy named Jordan Brown, who I met randomly in 2011, and he decided he was like a marketing guy, and he's like, "What should I do?" And I'm like, I just met him on Twitter or something. I was like, "Go learn how to code. Just stop whatever you're doing. It's not going to help you. Go learn how to code." And to his credit, he did, and I checked in with him every 6 months or so. And then I probably haven't talked to him in 2 years. I see him on Facebook, and I just see he got into YC 3-4 years later, and he's got the hot company. And my experience is this has happened a lot. This guy that I talked about, these movie guy, this guy that I met that I went to college with, who gave me that first job, he runs a company called Zephyr. Anybody heard of Zephyr? Yeah, it's like a $300-400 million company now. This guy, I was a freshman with this guy. He was not starting this company, There's this guy that I was looking at today with one of my friends who lives here. This guy we went to college with. I thought this guy would live in his parents' basement his whole life. He drives a Bentley, and that didn't seem to impress anybody. It impressed me. It's got a watermelon skin on it, like a sticker all over it, which I don't know if that helps it any. But he started this company called Beloved that makes these full body T-shirts at if you see them at the raves and stuff. Has anybody heard of this? Katy Perry, pizza onesies, pepperoni pizza onesies. Have you seen these? This guy's I'm gonna make a pepperoni pizza onesie and sell it for $100. And I don't know, people buy it. A lot of people. It's just shocking to me. It's insane. But he's been at it for 5-6 years, and everybody gets a chance. But if you just quit and you go back to your safe job, or if you run out of money, and if you alienate your family so much that your wife says I can't do this anymore, and you don't figure out a situation to avoid that, then you absolutely will not be successful. But I just see too many of these cycles. My buddy that started Her, who's here, who had $200. Is he here? Where is he? Where is he? I don't see him. He had $200 in his pocket a year and a half ago. Now he's got this really cool app. He's got these two guys that are super smart, that are experts in the artificial intelligence space. He's got all these patents and stuff on it. He's building something really cool. And 2.5 years ago, he had $200. And then he persevered. He got $100,000. This. I hear this story over and over again. I hear that story, and I hear the story of the person that was ran out of money, had to just go get my job. Like, I'll try again later. And sometimes that's okay. I'm not hating on that. But I'm just saying, like the great entrepreneurs find a way to do it no matter what. And in spite of being crazy. And every one of you for being here is crazy. If you come to hear me speak, you're crazy. There's no doubt about it. So kudos to you. And you know, and just don't give up. Just keep at it, you know. And
I do recommend that talk.
It'll work out.
If you ever need a little pep talk,
I think it'll work out.
Google "I'm not crazy." See what happens.
Don't do the
you never know
image
what you're gonna
search,
get
just
there.
the web.
So one of the things that I've been excited about this year through Startup Grind is that we are kind of gaining more and more opportunities to help startups gain visibility, startups that are, you know, doing their due diligence and getting traction and really building something that can help change the world. So give us a quick briefing on a couple of the new things that we have where we can help them.
So we're not an incubator. We have no plans to be an incubator. We don't want to be an incubator. They're great incubators. I already mentioned who they were. We're working with partners from those incubators to help great startups around the world get visibility and get in front of them and get a better shot. So, you know, we did this summer kind of as a test. We had 7 companies that we picked. 2 of them got into 500 startups and 1 got into Y Combinator. And I got to follow up with the other 4. I don't know what's happened to them. Hopefully they're still alive. But we're doing that again, and we're working with Techstars as well. And so the referral process for us always comes through the directors, so great people like Christie. So get on her good side. And she actually recommended a bunch of startups the last time, and you know, we put a few of those forward. So, but our goal here is just to help push you ahead. Those are our values. Like, we want to help you. That's one way we can help you.
And help people understand like how they should look
how
at
they do it.
when you don't live in Silicon Valley and you're considering one of those opportunities. I mean, as a company that has some traction and has some revenue, sometimes it's hard to think of how you would even uproot yourself or consider looping into one of those. So give us a little thought around that.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is how simple they think about who gets in and who doesn't. It's team, it's market, and it's you know, product attraction. And like, it sounds like, yeah, everybody says that. But like, honestly, like, if your market's not big, they immediately ignore you. So if you have a $200 million market, that can be a great business for you. It's not a great business for institutional investors because for a lot of reasons. So you got to have a really big market, multi-billion-dollar market. Markets that taking on markets in ways that people haven't taken it on before, bringing technology in to disrupt a market. And then who is your team? Team matters. Like, I hate to say it, but where you went to school, if you went to school, it's important. I mean, I didn't say it's important. It's a factor in people looking at you differently, right? If you went to Stanford, I didn't go to Stanford. So, like, if you went to Stanford, it looks cooler than going to BYU. It's just a fact. Sorry. So if you're getting team members who had great educations, who have a history of making good choices professionally and you know, and for themselves, it needs to be at least 50% technical. If you're not 50% technical, your founding team, and you're trying to build a startup, you have a bigger uphill battle than the person sitting next to you has that, much bigger. So go solve that problem. I hate when people then they say they have that problem, and then they don't try to solve it. The best advice I ever got for somebody who I was trying to solve the problem for myself, it was a guy named Josh Coates who started a company called Mosey. It sold for $80 million in 2 years. This guy is a genius. And he's got a new company called Instructure, which is disrupting Blackboard. And he said to me, go out and talk to 70 engineers, take them to lunch, interview them, and beg the best 2 or 3 to work with you and do everything you can to get them to join your vision. And that's exactly what I did. And it took me a year and a half to interview 70 engineers. And when I would find one that I thought was amazing, like somebody that had been on the Gmail team or somebody that had been at Apple, and I would I would do everything I could to get them to join. And they don't have to be on the Google. I'm not saying those people are probably, I didn't meet a lot of those people then, and there are probably not a lot of them here. But, you know, give those people an equal share of your company. Like, even if you start the company, it's your idea. Who cares? Like, it's not going anywhere without great people. You know, 25% of something really big and cool is way better than a 90% of a joke, you know? And I've got lots of jokes that I've built. So like just be generous. Be really generous. You can hire your co-founders, but be very generous with them. That's Mark Suster's advice. But so it's team, market, and product and traction. If you have a lot of traction, YC will love to take a long, hard look at you. If you have not a great team on paper, you have a big market, and you have a traction, you float to the top very, very fast.
And at the global event this year, we actually have opportunities for startups to get a little stage time in front of thousands of people. So I think that's kind of exciting too.
Yeah, so we're picking 40 companies across the network, and this is a 2-day event that we do in Silicon Valley at the end of February. And Mark Andreessen is speaking, and Clay Christensen speaking, and the founder of Twitter, Steve Blank, speaking. And then we bring like hundreds of investors from the Valley. And the idea is to get some of these companies funded, to find them mentors, to find them advisors. And so we'll pick 40 companies, and then we will take their information and we will send them to investors and say, are these people you want to meet with? And if they do, we'll set up the meetings at the event. And if they don't, then we'll get a lot of good feedback and we'll keep tweaking it and trying to help. And we'll find other people who are not investors that will be useful to those startups. So if that's something that's useful to you, if that timing's good for you, there's a cost of the tickets, which I think is pretty nominal. But you can demo your startup and hopefully we can try to help you. And
it's pretty cool.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. All right, so just a couple last things here. One of them is, what would you say? So you have a pretty cool bird's eye view into entrepreneurship from all around the world. Do you notice any trends in the U.S. or any certain cities that surprise you? Anything that stands out as something that brought success to a community in a way that was not anticipated?
I mean, you know, not more so than anybody else. I mean, the best communities are the ones that have people like Christie and lots of other people that I've met tonight who are helping push things ahead and who are giving of their giving first. And everyone in here can give something, and you need to figure out what that is. And it may be to be involved with Startup Grind. It may be to be involved with 10 other better things or different things in Startup Grind. Startup Grind serves one purpose, and there are lots of other organizations that do a great job at helping other needs. And so, but get involved and be open and be helpful and like try to just help everybody once, you know, and then as you get helped, help back, you know. And like I said, that's David Cohen. That's the founder of Techstars. That's what he did when we were trying to get into Boulder and Denver. I sent him an email like, hey, we're trying to get into Denver, Boulder. And he introed me to like the CEO of SendGrid, which was like a pretty big company at the time. And that got us started, you know. And he didn't know me from Adam, you know. And I'm nobody.
That's cool.
And you know, we need to do more things like that. And the best cities are the ones that they don't fight. It's not this like crabs crawling out of the bucket, you know. It's the ones that are like just generally like, and it starts with 2, 3 people, 5 people, 10 people, and it's infectious.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
On a beach on the North Shore, Turtle Bay and the villas, hopefully on the ground floor, walks right out to the beach.
All right. Well, that's a well-defined answer there. Is there anything else you would like to share before we go to Q&A? And
You're just awesome. That's all. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Thanks for coming.
Thank you very much
good.
for having me.
All right. So, before we go to Q&A, which will take a few questions, so think about that, we're going to play 21 questions real quick here and get to know Derek personally a little bit better, all right? So, here we go. Tacos or sushi?
Tacos.
Hey, good answer here. Dogs or cats?
Children.
That works.
No
Flip-flops?
offense.
Flip-flops or tennis shoes?
Nikes.
Paris or Hawaii?
Hawaii.
Mornings or nights?
Nights.
Favorite book?
How to Measure Your Life by
Favorite
Clay Christensen.
favorite app?
Probably Waze.
What is it?
Waze.
WAYS?
Traffic. WAZE. Traffic app.
Okay. Favorite sport to watch?
NBA.
Favorite sport to play?
Yeah, probably basketball.
Favorite vacation spot? North Bay?
North Shore.
North Shore.
Yeah, North Bay is
Close.
in north of San Francisco, and it's nice, but it's not great.
All right. Favorite hobby?
I don't know. I need more hobbies, probably.
You know, every entrepreneur I ask is like, what hobbies? I just work.
Yeah, I need
Yeah,
more. I need
get it.
to get out more.
All right.
It's an action item for me.
Favorite sweet treat?
Oh, it's an Oreo milkshake. The Jack in the Box one is pretty good. I mean, it's kind of like, I know it's kind of dirty, but it's good. The Carl's Jr. one's really good, but it's not really that big. And then the Cheesecake Factory one.
Oh,
Cheesecake Factory milkshakes are the best,
all
right?
right.
Who's got me?
Got it down.
The huge straws. Okay.
Describe a perfect pizza.
Not one that I had to buy. Not one found at Startup Grind.
Alright.
I'm so guilty of cheap pizza.
Favorite movie or TV show?
My favorite TV show in the last year is probably Lost. I know it's been off for a long time, but still love that show. I've been watching this show called The 100. It's kind of like a cheap CW version of Lost, and it's got its moments. And then favorite movie. I mean, I worked on The Godfather as an intern, so
Oh, cool.
definitely love that movie. And I don't know, all the usual. I like the same movies as everybody else.
You know, it's funny. I often get outdated shows from people when I ask as well, people that are busy running companies. When I interviewed the guy that is currently our governor last July and asked him, he said his favorite, most recent TV show was Seinfeld. And I was like, I could be wrong, but
That's bad.
I feel like that was a while ago, man.
That's like sounds like something a politician would say, right? What does it poll? What polls well?
He was
MASH.
actually really cool. MASH. All right. What is your favorite podcast?
Startup Grind podcast. Come on, I gotta be loyal to that.
There we go.
Available on iTunes and
What's your
Stitcher.
and Stitcher. What's your favorite go-to, or what's your go-to karaoke song?
When a man loves a woman. Or my kids are getting into Gangnam Style right now. They're like 5 and 3, so they missed it. It's like reliving a really bad dream. They saw it on some stupid new movie that just came out. Like, why would you put that song in a kids movie? Is like beyond me.
That's
but
mean.
So right now it's probably actually Gangnam Style.
All
And
right.
yeah.
Anything you collect?
I collect broken dreams at my events sometimes. So I'm a good shoulder to cry on. I'm a good listener.
If you weren't an entrepreneur, what would your profession be?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, I'm not really. I kind of get too frustrated working in a big company. I'm not like a great employee, so I don't know. Probably doing some marketing or something where I can be creative, but it's something I can be good at. My dad ran an advertising agency. That always was something that seemed to make sense to me. So I'm glad I'm not doing that, but I probably could.
A cause you are passionate about?
I'm passionate about. I'm really passionate about democratizing education. That people that can live anywhere and you could still get access to great education. I put a lot of time and energy and my own money into helping people that just need it.
One thing on your bucket list.
I really want to go to Bora Bora in Tahiti.
There's no chapters there?
No, we have one in Bali, but it's not as good as Bora Bora. I am going to China next month, so that's kind of on one of my short-term lists. I feel like everything's moving to China, so I need to get over there and understand it, and I don't. And what I've been told is 5 minutes in China, and you'll learn more about China than anything that any time you could spend reading about it. So
Well, Tanny
I'm
can
gonna
help you out
do
over there.
3 or 4 cities in China, and then a couple days in a place called Ryland. It's a beach in Thailand, which you'll see on Pinterest.
Nice.
I'm a beach guy.
All right, last
Best
one.
beach other than the North Shore. Oh, I was thinking we were in. It's Newport Beach for sure. So that's a little bit closer. If you
The
need
one
it.
in Oregon?
No. Down
Oh,
in Southern
in LA.
California. Yeah.
Okay. All
Love
right.
Newport
So,
Beach.
last
Good
but not
memories.
least, I hear that you had the honor of filming kind of a documentary a while back about the crab man, who is a self-proclaimed faster than lightning
did.
crab catcher,
Yep.
and that he caught Hawaii's largest crabs.
He did.
He
According
said
to
he
Google
has
search.
a special gift in that he can talk to crabs. Is this true?
So I filmed one summer. It's like when I was at EA. This was my creative outlet. We filmed this video of my little nephew, and he was hunting crabs. And like, we made this video, and it was 6 minutes long. It was too long, and I put it up, and then I like shifted it, and I was like, I did a new edit. He was really cute and funny, and then I called it like Crab Man catches the world's largest crabs, and I put like this ridiculous thumbnail that like absolutely did not match the video, and like it started out kind of slow, and then over like the next few weeks and months, it started to pick up speed, and after like a year and a half, it had like 10 million views. This little boy like catching these teeny tiny sand crabs in the North Shore. The problem
Talking about
was
how it helps him get the ladies.
it was the number 2 when you search world's largest crabs. It was the number 2 result. Okay, the problem was it had this huge crab on the thumbnail, and then when you clicked on it, you had one of two reactions. One, you're like, man, that kid's so cute. This is so funny. Like, what a great thing. Or you're like, man, I hate that little kid. I thought this was gonna be a crab video, like with huge crabs. And then you would leave those people would leave the most vile comments you've ever read in your entire life. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of puns there that I just would never imagine. It's terrible. And like eventually like we start getting all these bad ratings and Google just took it down. So, but it hit 10 million videos, and its peak was he was on a ski trailer like snowboarding one time at Sundance, and they were talking with this guy, and this guy sitting next to him on the trailer's like, wait, are you the crab man? And he was like, he made it. He absolutely made it at that point.
awesome.
So
That's
very
awesome.
proud of that.
All right, we'll take a few questions.
Yeah, let's do it real quick. I'm sorry I'm talking. I'm so long-winded, but we can be really quick. If somebody needs to leave, feel free to leave. You're not going to – I'll make fun of you, but we won't offend you. It won't offend me. So we maybe do 2 or 3, like, quick. Yeah, go for it. 5 years from now? Well, I hope our goal is to educate every entrepreneur in the world. So we help a few million a year through all of the things that we do. So there's like 100 million entrepreneurs in the world. So I hope we're helping a much larger percentage of that. We're just really, it's always stupid when people say this, but like if we're really only like just like scratching the surface. So that's my job to figure out how to do that. It's probably not more events. We're not going to start doing more events here. We're like the events that we do once a month is great. We're trying to find other ways to help, whether it's the podcast or our videos or whatever. Yeah, Tim.
You personally, like, what is your favorite piece of startup grind? Like, what gets you, like, pumped?
It's really stuff like this. Honestly, like I don't travel a lot because I have little kids. So coming into this and like meeting a lot of you, and a lot of you have had some interaction with over the last year. You and I randomly met at a mutual friend's wedding, like 8 or 9 years ago or something. And so like, I mean that's kind of random. But like it's stuff like that. It's walking in here and seeing this and all the effort and energy that the whole team puts together, and the amazing venue and the food and everything. It's just like, and to think this is happening in 100 other cities. It's happening in Gaza as we speak, and that's really rewarding. And so I'm stoked to be here. But that's absolutely my favorite part. Yeah, Justin.
So one thing I've been, I go to ASU and I study in entrepreneurship, and their focus is in entrepreneurship, but I was just wondering, piecing the importance of Stanford for Silicon Valley and the capabilities of ASU growing in, it's heading that direction. Michael Crow's been studying that vision there, and the importance of the entrepreneurial community tying in and keeping the smartest, brightest, entrepreneurial-minded, technical-minded students that are coming out of ASU here in the Valley, and just developing that, bringing the university into the community.
It's really natural in Palo Alto. Like I've been there for 10 years. It's very fluid. They have entrepreneurial programs there, but like the best stuff, Snapchat, Google, whatever, like it just happens, right? So how does it just happen? It doesn't just happen, but like it's not through a school program, you know. So maybe some of that's changing. They have StartX, which is a really great program, an incubator there, or accelerator. But it's just a mindset of people at the top that, like, if you have a great idea, you're going to be celebrated and rewarded for that, right, at our school. If you need to defer, if you need to go away, you need to do it. Like, that's what this is about. Stanford's like one of these things where it's like an honor to not finish your degree because you went and did a startup. Like, that's a really positive, cool thing. And so that's a shift. That comes from the top. That comes, it's not a program. I don't think. I mean, I'm probably not an expert on it, but like in my mind, it's just the right people at the top saying, like, we're going to produce entrepreneurs, we're going to help entrepreneurs, and they have a revolving door. Come and go as you want. Go create great stuff. Come back in 5 years if you want. Don't come back. Don't finish. Come back when you're huge success. My brother did that at BYU. He was a horrible student. He built the second fastest growing privately owned company on Inc.'s 500 list in 2004. Went from like 250,000 in revenue to 30 million in revenue the next year.
Whoa.
And it was just like he became like he eventually did get his degree, you know, but they just let him do what he needed to do. You know, BYU is actually is pretty good. There's a lot of great startups that have come from entrepreneurs, and I'm sure there's a lot of I just know them better. So ASU's probably, you know, maybe has some great. Those people need to be brought in. They need to be talking to the student body every few weeks. You know, there's a class that I took in college. Every week they brought it was like this, but it would just give a talk. You know, alumni. That was my favorite class. That really like is the genesis of Startup Grind. Is that class my freshman year, and yeah. Well, I was a different guy at the time, but yeah. And so like I was so inspired by that. And there was some weird stuff. There was like this lady making like clocks out of cow dung and like weird stuff, but she was like hugely successful, like weird stuff. Then you'd have like the Omniture guys who like sold their company to Adobe for $2 billion, you know, and dropped out of BYU. And then came back with my brother who dropped out, and then he bought an NBA D-League team. He did all these other crazy things, and he came back and was like, I was a horrible student, but this is what I did, you know, and that was inspiring to me as somebody that wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Last question.
And the cheap seats. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I'm curious what you think the most important ingredient or ingredients to success are for like a budding entrepreneur community like
To a community? Yeah, I mean, it's people. It's like, it's not a lot of people. It's 5 or 10 great people who just are going to make it happen. Yeah.
All right. Give him a hand, ladies
Thank
and
you very
gentlemen.
much.
Thank